Insidious. What an interesting franchise this is. I am here to rank all 5 Insidious films because there are now indeed 5 movies. Let's start with the bottom. What I feel like is the worst movie in the series. Let's go with Insidious: The Last Key, which is technically Chapter 4. This came out in 2018. Now, I don't think this movie is like a horrible piece of shit. I do think that this film does some interesting things as far as getting flashbacks and backstory on the Elise character, stuff that happened with her when she was younger, with her father and the abuse and her mother. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on for sure. Building the mythology, connecting this film to the first film. We see how certain events led to the very first film. And so that's probably what I appreciate the most. But it was the creature. Yeah, Keyface, I think his name is. I mean, he looks like shit. I didn't find him scary. I didn't find a lot of the jump scares in this movie scary. And the main characters that Elise was trying to save, I honestly didn't really care what happened to them. At number 4, let's go with Insidious Chapter 3. A similar deal as far as this movie being a prequel. So it's again before the events of the first 2 movies, and we see Elise, who is still alive. We see how she starts working with those Ghostbusters type guys who are very entertaining. I think them, along with Elise, is the only reason why Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 are even watchable. Because without them, they're all generic horror films that I've seen 100 times. And as far as the actual horror, as far as the actual ghosts or the creatures in even Chapter 3, I don't know. I don't get a big takeaway from them. They're not all that memorable. Like this man who can't breathe. Yes, maybe some creepy images, but it just never stuck with me. It never grabbed me in a way where, like the other Insidious movies, I actually think about some of those ghosts or demons. I actually think about how much those scenes stay with me. Where at Chapter 3, it just kind of came and went. I barely remember a lot about this movie. I remember the main girl being hit by a car. But other than that, yeah, not so much. At number 3, Insidious: The Red Door. Now, this is the most recent film in the series, but I personally liked how much this feels more of a sequel to the first 2 movies, how it brings back the Lambert family, who I felt more of a connection to, who I felt more invested in. Sure, it's sad to see that Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne's characters are divorced at this point, and a lot of the strain in their marriage comes from the fact that Patrick Wilson doesn't remember what happened to him and what he did to the family while he was possessed. So there's a big divide, especially between him and his son Dalton. They just the sons don't really trust him, but they don't exactly remember why. Like, it's intense. The next 2 movies, the best 2 movies, I had trouble placing which one should go which. Honestly, they're kind of interchangeable to me. If you catch me on another day, I might have a different answer, but we will say at number 2, let's go with Insidious Chapter 2. I say that this was tough because I very much like Insidious Chapter 2. I like seeing Patrick Wilson be possessed and trying to fight this possession. Also, even the ghost that is possessing him, seeing him try to live his life and just the whole thing of ghosts wanting to be alive again, wanting to be human again. Like, I found that very interesting. The creepy moments of the family slowly realizing, little by little, that the father is not really his father, and what you're able to do when you're in the further, seeing Patrick Wilson being trapped in the further and constantly trying to give hints that it's not really him, or how, since time is relative, how Patrick Wilson was involved with a lot of the creepy moments from the first film. Now, maybe that takes away the mystery and mystique of the first movie and some of the creepiness, sure. But I did like seeing how it was tied together. I did like seeing how it was connected together. This bride in black, the image of this creepy old man wearing the dress in drag and just having this obsession with strangling people. I always have it in my head how creepy the image of her laughing maniacally while she's strangling people. That is really fucked up. And I think this character as the villain was way creepier than even the Darth Maul Red Demon from the first movie. But with that being said, the number one Insidious movie, I had to ultimately go with the first film because I think the first movie does such a great job of setting everything up, putting everything in motion with the little boy, Dalton, falling into the coma and trying to figure out what's wrong with him, realizing that it's not the house that's haunted, it's the kid. I mean, I love how fast we jump into this, how much the haunting happens and how intense it is. And I love that the family actually does something that most families in horror movies don't do. They move. Because that's what we're always yelling at characters to do, but then when they move, it doesn't help. It's not enough. So it follows them around. That one scene where Rose Byrne sees the ghost dancing to Tiny Tim, I'll never be able to hear that song and not think of horror, creepy shit ever again. Also, as much as I kind of joke about the Darth Maul demon and how kind of silly it looks, there are creepy moments with him and there are creepy images with him, but also you get the images and flashes of the backstory with the bride in black. They don't get into the backstory as much as the second movie does, and that she just exists, and especially in those pictures where she was following Patrick Wilson's character as a kid, getting closer and closer to him. All of that's very creepy. This movie is probably the scariest out of all of them. I always think about the sequence when they're trying to figure stuff out, what's going on, and the house alarm keeps going off over and over again in the middle of the night. The scene where their front door is just wide open, that's one of my worst fears, is for something like that to go on and for you not to have control of it. The scene where Rose Byrne wakes up in the room and she sees the ghost outside of her window only for him to come into the room and attack her. These are moments that I'll always remember, and these are moments that always give me the heebie-jeebies, creeps me out the more I think about them. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the Insidious movies? What are your top 5 rankings? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!